Thank you very much. So this is actually going to be hopefully short and very sweet. What I'm about to share with you is just some thinking, maybe a little thought piece, something to trigger some ideas about what I'm calling this search for a wireless enterprise seamless experience. So you'll see it up here. But right now I'm just going to go through this very quickly, and then I'd ask any of you can contact me with questions afterwards. I think you'll get my email address on the program or through this PowerPoint slide. Oh. Is that better? Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. It's almost manual mode here. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. I only have 15 minutes. I'd ask you to contact me later with questions, and more importantly, if you have something you can share that looks like a good case study for achieving this idea of a seamless wireless experience, because that's in general what I'm looking for, is trying to see how is this going to come together. So let me go through this real quickly. You kind of get a sense of what I'm talking about, and then hopefully I've talked to many of you actually already about something like this. But the whole thought is around enterprise customers, the need for a seamless wire experience, and how is that going to happen with all the different technologies, all the different methods of doing that. So let me start. So as you can see here, sorry about this, I'm getting close to this. I have to read some of this. I'm not going to read every point in this slide, but the basic thing is kind of saying, where are we now? What are enterprise customers looking for? In many cases, you know, they're pretty comfortable now with getting their own Wi-Fi taken care of. They're having major issues with coverage for wireless cellular services. I talked to many enterprise customers, and there's so many different ways this can happen, but the bottom line is it is a challenge to have a wireless, both with Wi-Fi and with a cellular service combined, with the combination of BIOD, where they're not dictating what device which carry anymore. Secondly, Wi-Fi generally isn't enough. There's still a need to have cellular service and a minimum text service in some cases. As you know, many applications now are doing notification alerts and reminders using text messaging the old-fashioned way, you know, through the cellular network. And then lastly, we're seeing that in many cases there's even both in-building situations, obviously, and then the other thing that's coming to play is also this idea of public safety that's required in many of these buildings now. So for all those reasons, enterprise customers are kind of looking for this kind of answer of having a seamless wireless experience, and they really don't care whether it's alphabet soup of technology, Wi-Fi, NFC, GSM, CDMA. They really don't care. They just want to have a wireless experience that's seamless, that gets them and their end users to business applications. And the last point here is that in many cases, this actually can happen in some of the large venues and stadiums. So think of Levi Stadium. I thought it was kind of interesting to me, watching this as an industry kind of analyst, to see that in many cases during the Super Bowl, every single large operator talked about putting 45, 50, 80 million into Levi Stadium to provide coverage for the traffic during the Super Bowl. Wouldn't it be nice if that could happen in more buildings and more places and for many more of the large enterprise customers, is kind of how I'm looking at this. So this is actually kind of obvious. I obviously use this slide from one of our partners here and sponsors, but the whole idea is that there is this gap of, you know, how do you get this wireless coverage? In many cases, you can get it if you're a very, very large customer, in some cases a very large multi-tenant building. In many cases, you can get it if you're in a stadium, but otherwise, then it gets very difficult. I'd also say, I think on the other slide, I mentioned this idea of small cell deployment hasn't happened as fast as many have thought. You've heard many an operator, I won't pick on any operator, but you heard them talk about them trying to get more aggressive at deploying small cell, but it just hasn't happened to the extent they've announced, or nor to the extent that most of the vendors would like to see adoption. Part of it's technology, part of it's cost, obviously, but in the end, what I'd like to think about is how does this happen over time, and how does an enterprise get the sufficient services that they need under any business model. So I think what I've seen is some many creative business models. Again, I've talked to some of you out there. all the small cell vendors, obviously, we work with at OVUM, people with JMA Wireless as examples, Spider Cloud, there's a number of you out there, Ruckus Wireless, I don't leave out anybody, but there's a lot of people out there like yourselves trying to pull off this. And I think it's going to take a different business model, and I also believe you'll see at the end some of my thoughts. So these are the major observations where I'm going with. The one thing I want to put out front is I just don't think it's going to be a situation where people, enterprise customers in particular, CIOs, C-levels, are going to wait for 5G. I think that's unrealistic for them. I think they have to wait. I think there is a lot of creativity, innovative business models, and technology solutions that could give them, close to the seamless wireless experience for most of their end users. I think it may be difficult to say in every site, every location, every end user, but I think there's a lot of things going on that are extremely innovative around the technology and the business model that may allow this to happen. Now, what I'd like to ask is this wasn't to be a full discussion, and for 15 minutes, I really can't do much about a lot of questions, but what I would like you to think about is I really would like to see, in some cases, take a look at some examples of where this is happening in a very innovative and creative way. So I'm talking to some of you right now, but I'd like to get any examples you see where this looks like there could be a scalable option. And what environments, what business models, along with the technology, obviously, of how this seems to happen, that let's say most large enterprise customers, I can't look at the impossible at every single customer, but where could they start to see some of the trends, some of the new business models, some of the technology, innovative approaches that would say, most enterprise customers can actually get a seamless wireless experience with the combination of various technologies and with some collaboration in the industry, which when I talk about that, I'm thinking about both the operator, the enterprise customer, and a multitude of vendors and service partners that can provide something like this. And so I'll be looking for that and be glad to talk to you about anything that you're doing along those lines. One more thing. I put on here that what we've seen at OVUM, because we're a very global company, we have seen in some cases some interesting cases in Asia where both the service provider and the enterprise customers are working together more closely to provide a combination of wireless services that would include DAS systems, small cells, integrated with Wi-Fi. And so we've seen in Korea and Japan in particular where this is going on, and they're building kind of a whole wireless net for all customers, including obviously enterprise customers, that it seems to be they're more aggressive about doing this. Now, one could argue that it's because of their density. It could be that there's more of a dominant position by the operator, let's say versus the US where we have many versus one. But all I'm doing right now is actually trying to put a seed in your mind to think about what that would look like, what it would take, and if you see something like this as a possible progress step or case study, to please let me know. And with that, I don't know if I have too much time, but so any questions about this at all? I mean, it's kind of wide open, but I'm ready to take any questions on, or I'll let Alyssa and the team move on to the next part of the program. Questions, thought? All right, well, I'll just leave it at that, and you know how to get a hold of me through Alyssa, and also you'll see this presentation with my email address on it. I think I'd be glad to talk to you again. Thank you.